Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to our missiondawah.com online dawah training course series with Abdurraheem Green. We are going to be talking today about how to get that Shahadah. So we've gone through the whole conversation of the Go-Rap. How do we actually get them to accept Islam? Firstly, Abdurraheem, can you just give us a summary on what we've discussed throughout the series?
A very quick summary is people skills, bypassing the uncomfortable questions, how to start a dawah conversation, how can you actually start a conversation with someone, and then some guidelines about how we can actually use the Go-Rap. So Go-Rap stands for talking about God's existence and God's oneness and the revelation and prophethood, and how it's a very logical, rational, systematic way of going through the basic, most important things that a Muslim believes in. Not everything, but it's the most important stuff. So that's really what we've covered up until now. And of course, the purpose of this is all to lead towards the Shahadah.
Yeah. So how do we get the Shahadah?
Well, it's a simple question of saying, does that make sense to you? Everything. One of the nice things to do when you're talking to a person is to constantly get affirmation from them.
Yeah.
So on each point, obviously you get a balance of getting it right. You don't want to say it every second, but you keep saying, does that make sense? Are you with me? You know, do you agree with that so far?
Yeah.
Because genuinely, if a person has issues, you want to know about it. Maybe you can clarify them, maybe you can't. But it's good to make sure the person's with you. So hopefully by the time you get to the end, you say, well, this is it. What we're saying is that God has revealed guidance in the form of the Quran. He sent Muhammad, who is his last and final messenger, and that what God wants from us is to accept his oneness, to follow his guidance, and to accept his final messenger.
Sure. What if they say, it makes sense, I agree with it all, but I just need to study more. Maybe there's something else out there. Maybe I need to learn a bit more or read the whole Quran before taking the leap. What would you say to that?
A lot of these things I judge on a case-by-case basis, because sometimes a person may really need to do that. And again, it's quite a delicate balance between realizing when a person it's just shaitan. You know, the moment this person is going to come close to becoming Muslim, shaitan is coming personally to make sure that he or she doesn't. Or sometimes it's just their nafs kicking in, and it's not really that they need to study more. One of the things that I might say to a person is, look, based upon what you've heard so far, if all of this is true, and this is something mashallah, I heard from some people who took Shahadah, and they said, everything makes sense. If I come across something that totally destroys everything that I've come to accept, then I'm not going to stay Muslim anyway. I wouldn't, whatever the consequences, I want to follow the truth. And if I found it wasn't the truth, just as I've embraced it because it's the truth, I would reject it because it's not the truth. Now, I'm not saying necessarily you'd invite a person to think about that. But the point is that a person who is sincere, they will realize that, well, being sincere is what's important to me. And this all makes sense.
Sure.
And so, I mean, one of the things I say is, look, there's no end to studying. There is no end to it. You can learn the Quran, then you can say, well, I need to learn Arabic. Then you'll say, well, I need to read the Hadith. Then I need to read the books of Seerah. And, you could get very, very far, and your life could pass before you ever get to the stage where you feel you need to. But the point being is, based upon the information that you've got so far, does that make sense? You're going to accept it. Now, like I said, everyone is different. There are some people who genuinely do need to study.
Sure.
And it's up to you as a da'i to know. When I sometimes say to people, they come to me and they say, I want to take Shahadah. I said, that's okay, mashallah, how much do you know about Islam? Because I get the feeling that the person wants to take Shahadah because they want to marry someone, or it's happened to me when I used to work in the London Central Mosque. So I'd ask, and then I'd say, you know what, that's great, you want to become Muslim. I'll try and tell them what they need to know. And sometimes I say, you need to read and study a bit. Sometimes a person will come and I'd sit and talk with them and they say, that all makes sense, but I just, I need to get my head around this. And I said, no, you do need to study more, because I realize that's what that person needs.
Yeah.
Because people are different in what gives them certainty.
Right.
And at the end of the day, the Shahada is a testimony. It is, I bear witness that there is nothing worthy of worship except Allah, and that Muhammad is his messenger.
Yeah.
Why do you want to make a person lie? You don't want to make a person lie, right? So getting the Shahada is important. And unfortunately, you find it's very tempting to fall between extremes. One extreme is, I just tell them and I never get to inviting them. I'm too shy to actually say. The other extreme is, I'm going to make them say Shahada. They won't leave this place until, I don't care whether they believe it or not. I need to tick another Shahada off on my list. Both of those are wrong. We want people to genuinely become Muslim, because it's clicked with them. Yeah. That's your job. Yeah. Your job is to pass the message, to invite them, to give them all the opportunities. And so when we're going through when we go through the obstacles you might meet in terms of the person getting the Shahada, these are things that, these are like mental blocks a person needs to overcome. Right. Sometimes you can do it straight away, sometimes you can't.
Right, that's a very, very valid point, mashallah. Yeah. So for example, somebody's accepted Islam. They say, I believe it, I'm ready, and they take the Shahada. What happens next?
This is very, very important to get this right. And again, unfortunately, this is the area where we are failing really badly, because people are taking Shahada and then unfortunately they're apostatizing. Not primarily because of any particular doubts about Islam itself, simply because there's no support network, simply because no one takes them beyond the Shahada. Right. And this is not right. And that's part of the reason why in IERA we have formed a support network called Muslim Now. The purpose of Muslim Now is to help look after the new Muslims. However, there's limited things that we can actually do as an organization. Sure. So every individual needs to, the primary responsibility is with the da'i.
The da'i, yeah.
The primary responsibility is with the da'i. And the responsibility is that person needs to start praying. Once they've taken Shahada, they need to start praying. That's why we also recommend, before the Shahada, you do a brief outline of the 5 pillars of Islam. Right. And the main articles of Iman, and some of the basic duties, not like, oh, you're going to need to get circumcised tomorrow, right? That you don't need to mention that. But the fact that you need to pray, right, 5 times a day, you have to give some of your, the 5 pillars of Islam, then you have to speak the truth, you have to keep your promises, basic things like that. There's some things that are really just worth mentioning, although you may think they're obvious, but they're really good things, right? The most important thing is praying 5 times. Usually if a person prays 5 times a day, everything else will come with it.
MashaAllah.
Everything else will come with it. So I say to everyone giving dawah out there who gets a Shahada, your responsibility is to get that person to pray from the time they take the Shahada. You need to make sure, as much as you possibly can, that same day they start praying. If that means you take them to the mosque, you take them home, or wherever it is, you teach them wudu, whatever it is you have to do, you get them to start praying. But that's why it's useful, before you get to the Shahada stage, to give a small introduction about the 5 pillars of Islam. It happened once that, mashallah, some brothers in university were on giving dawah, and this guy came along, they did the whole go-rap. He just said, that's fantastic. He accepted it, took the Shahada. They said, now we'll go and pray. And he said, pray? What? Pray? I didn't hear anything. He just literally ran off. Really? So the thought of any type of actual commitment, just scared him off. So you need to introduce, okay, from that comes, it's not about putting people off, it's just about giving them an honest, viewpoint of, this is what being a Muslim involves, right? Now we want to encourage people. There's different ways you can explain to them, you don't want to make it sound like, you don't go into the whole description of what the prayer is. Make it simple. It is simple. Once you start to pray, it's whatever it is, 20 minutes a day, 5 times at certain periods. So it's 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. If you've done that, you've done the obligation. That's it. You've done it. It's not difficult. So yeah, and so the other thing is get them in touch. And what we ask everyone to do, very simple procedure, right? First of all, obviously you want to let them know your name, who you are, and you tell them, I'm going to pass your number on to an organization called IERA there, or to just say, I'm going to pass your number on to someone from an organization called Muslim Now. They help look after new Muslims. All they're going to do is give you a phone call, offer you some assistance, send you a dawah pack that's going to introduce you, is going to give you basic things about Islam, and just be in touch with you to make sure things are okay. So you need to tell them, because unfortunately, again, what's happened is that people have got numbers of people have taken Shahadah and passed them on to Muslim Now, and then when Muslim Now phone those people, it's like, who are you? I never heard of you. Where did you get my number from? So again, that's not really thinking very intelligently, right? It's going to freak the poor person out, right? So what you want to do is prepare them, tell them, MashaAllah, you've taken Shahada, let's go and pray. You've got the whole time you're teaching them to pray. You say, okay, what I'm going to do, maybe for some reason you just can't, it's possible, you haven't got a way, or they say no, they're reluctant to come with you to the masjid or to learn to pray. You know, it's again shaitan playing with them. Say, okay, look, at least let me take your number, and I'm going to get someone to get in touch with you. I'm going to get in touch with you and someone else, and all they want to do is send you a pack of books, right? We'll teach you about how to pray, how to this and that, and you know, they'll just ring you every now and then to make sure you're okay. You need to tell them about that. And then obviously take their number, take their email. You know, email and telephone number is usually more than enough. You don't need to get their address and account number and this and passcode. And, no, I mean, just the basic, number and email. Pass it on to Muslim Now. Someone from Muslim Now will get in touch with them so they can send them a welcome pack. And give them a ring and make sure that, things are going okay with them. And there are different ways we can try and offer help. It's not unlimited. We have a limited amount of help that we can do. And one of the things that Muslim Now does is they do a retreat for new Muslims. They have different programs running for new Muslims. So, I mean, the whole thing is to plug them into that. And that's all. The purpose of that is so when a person takes Shahada, generally what has been found by some other dawah organizations, mashallah, there's some people have been doing really good work over the years, advised us that the key to keeping people, new Muslims, to keeping them in Islam is giving them knowledge. They don't need to be mollycoddled and wrapped in cotton wool and given everything. And anyway, that's just not good for human beings anyway. But the thing they do need to be given is knowledge. Generally, once you've got the knowledge, you'll stick with it. If you've got the knowledge, you'll stick with it. The danger is when you don't have the knowledge. You got no foundation. You heard this thing, you became Muslim, then you didn't get the support. So I think that's the key thing. Other people do need more specialist help, and there's other organizations that are trying to cater for that. So yeah, that's it really, inshallah.
Okay, Jazakallah khair, Abdurraheem. So there we have it. We've gone through the whole goal wrap and also introduced how we can actually get the Shahada and look after the new Muslims. Jazakallah khair, Abdurraheem, for all your time. And as always, Jazakallah khair for watching. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.